Recording.
All right, so good afternoon again, good evening, and good morning to all of us, depending on where we are coming from and where we are right now in the world. Welcome to the Champions of Human Resources um, mentoring program. This is our March 2025 edition of the monthly webinar series that is part of the Champions of HR program. My name is Omagbitse Barrow. I'm the founder and chief executive of Learning Impact. And Learning Impact is the company that puts together this program. And we've been doing so since about October of 2023. I would like to welcome all of our old members of the forum and the group, as well as new people who are joining us for the first time today. As usual, I will crave your indulgence to request that you put your microphones off until such a time that you are invited to speak so that it does not affect the participation and the flow of the program, as well as the recording of the program. So we're going to start right away. I'm going to share my slides and we will jump into our conversations. As usual, I will be sharing some thoughts about the subject matter. Today's subject matter is linking learning to strategy and performance. So I'm going to be talking about that. In between, of course, I'll give you the opportunity to ask questions. We'll have some interactions. Depending on how things go, probably have a breakout session here and there. Please feel free to share your thoughts and your comments as we go along. So if there's anything, if you've got questions, if you've got clarifications, just pop them using the chat functionality on your phone or your computer, on your tablet, on the Zoom platform here. I would certainly look at those things. And if it requires my urgent attention, I will certainly respond to it. If not, it will be responded to during one of our Q&A or interactive times together. Okay. So again, welcome to all of you, both our new as well as our old members and participants. Please remember to put your microphone on silent until such a time that you are invited to speak. For those of us who are just joining, my name is Omagbitse Barrow, and this is the Champions of Human Resources Management monthly series, webinar series. And our subject matter for today is linking learning to performance and strategy. Okay. So like I promised, I'm just going to share my screen shortly and then we will begin. All right, so I just want to confirm now. Can someone confirm to me that they can see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Michelle.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Excellent. So let's jump right into it. It's linking learning to strategy and performance. Before we go into the details of today's particular subject matter, I would like to start, for the benefit of those who are joining us for the first time, to introduce our company, Learning Impact, very briefly, as well as to introduce the Champions of HR program, so that you understand a bit about the context of who we are and why we are here. Learning Impact is an Abuja-based consulting and strategy firm, was established in 2010. I founded this company after about a decade-long career working as an investment banker at the organization that is now known as Stanbic IBTC. What we do in Learning Impact and what we have done since 2010 is really around a number of core areas. First being corporate training and coaching, which we'll consider our flagship. This was where our journey began in 2010. And very quickly, we expanded and have done many other things, especially in the areas of strategy and organizational development consulting, where we support organizations with building their strategy, especially around tools like the Balance Scorecard, and helping organizations with strategic human resources management, helping them to build the quality of the HRM function and to use strategic HR as a tool to transform their organizations. We've also built an enviable practice in the area of HR technology solutions, where we offer solutions in e-learning, solutions in HR software and tools that are used to optimize various HR processes. And perhaps our very important HR solution in that area is around 360-degree evaluations that give organizations the opportunity to get their leaders to get more feedback about their leadership and their teamwork and their other capabilities using a 360-degree approach. I already spoke about our e-learning and knowledge management products and services and solutions. And the one that is critically dear to our heart that has to do with the younger population is our life skills education and resources. So we offer life skill education programs and resources that try to bridge the gap between the youth and the workplace. And that really comes from our experience with the fact that a lot of people in the modern workplace didn't get the right foundation in life skills. We all got a technical or a vocational education or a combination of both. But somehow our educational enterprise left out life skills like leadership, like personal effectiveness, like creative problem solving, financial literacy, communication skills. And perhaps that's the reason why organizations invest so much today in what we call remedial adult education to deal with some of the gaps that we didn't identify when we were younger. So we've also done a lot of work with respect to life skills education and life skills educational resources targeted at children and youth. So that's a bit about our company, Learning Impact. The Champions of HR program, as you can see on the screen, is really a network of young to mid-career HRM professionals that receive mentoring and support to help them to grow in their HR careers. The pain point of the program really drives its focus, and the focus is on building the strategic HR capabilities of professionals so that HR people can move from being just operational HR to being more strategic HR. And this again comes from our experience and our practice working with different organizations, seeing that gap that exists where HR people have often and typically excelled in the personnel management area, but haven't really grown to become the strategic contributors that they should be in the organization. The program consists of a monthly webinar, what we are doing right now, that takes place on the third Saturday of every month. And we have done this consistently since October of 2023. It also includes a very active WhatsApp group where we network, exchange ideas, solve problems that are related to HR, and also do other things to advance the profession and our careers and our vocations around human resource management. Okay, so this, ladies and gentlemen, is a bit of a summary of the Champions of HR program, as well as a bit of a summary of our organization, Learning Impact. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to again request that our participants, if you don't mind, kindly put your microphones on silent. There are a few people whose microphones are not on silent and are therefore affecting the quality of this transmission. Yeah? So again, welcome. I'm going to continue now as we go into the content for today. So remember, today's session is about linking learning to strategy and performance. And it's a subject that is very dear to me because if you think about the name of our company, Learning Impact, in fact, that is the core of the organization. That's what drove that name. The point about how can we ensure that we can sustain and increase the impact of learning in our organizations. That was my agenda the first time I got into the world of human resources as the head of learning and development at IBTC Pensions many years ago. And that was the type of agenda and passion that drove me into the work that we have done in Learning Impact for the last 15 years and has been driving myself and my colleagues and associates at Learning Impact. So again, this is a subject matter that is certainly very, very, very dear to us. So let's talk about it in terms of our outline and learning objectives. Like I said, the program starts at 5 minutes past 4. We have some teaching, some interactions, and sometimes some activities. And we tend to close at about 5:30. So it's a 90-minute seminar or webinar, as the case may be. Like I mentioned earlier, please, if you've got any pertinent questions, write them down, put them on the chat. If you've got comments as we go along, feel free to share your comments on the chat, and I may respond to them depending on what they are and how urgent and strategic they are. And then we would have opportunities, for us to pause and to, get some feedback from each other and so on and so forth. So please feel free to wait till that time. As I said, we would love everyone to put their microphones on silent so that it does not disturb or interfere with the transmission, the learning, and the recording. So we're going to start off, as we always do, exploring theoretical and empirical foundations. What does the research, what have scholars in the areas of organizational behavior, HR, and management, what have they learned? What does the science of HR tell us about this particular subject? And then we would explore some of the realities of learning and development in our organizations, some of the pain points that make it important for us to ask this question: how can we link learning to strategy and performance? And then talk about some of the key issues in strategic learning and development, how to build the capacity of HR people to drive learning and development, how to gain the commitment of the leaders and the managers in your organization around more impactful learning interventions, and of course, how to create a culture of learning. And we believe that by the time we have gone through all of these content over the course of the next 1 hour or so, we will have moved the needle around the subject of how you, as a human resources management leader, professional, aspiring human resources management practitioner, an organizational leader, or someone who is just interested in the subject of HR and learning, how you can indeed help your organization to link learning better to strategy and performance. Okay, so these are our learning objectives, and we will jump right in to start to engage on the content based on these objectives. A few of us still have our microphones on. Perhaps people who are just joining us, that this is the Champion of HR program. Today we are discussing how to link with performance. And my name is Omagbitse Barrow, and I'm from Learning Impact. We have quite a number of people whose microphones have been on, and I would, encourage my colleagues who have been appointed as co-hosts to kindly help with just ensuring that as people come in, you can very quickly mute their microphones so that, again, it does not really have an adverse effect for the rest of us. So let's start off with exploring theoretical background. And I put I put something up there that I thought is quite interesting. IWOIT. It works only in theory. You know, it's a very annoying thing that I often hear, very irritated by it, especially when I hear it coming from HR professionals, L&D professionals. You know, you work with and they say things like it only works in theory. And you hear this from marketing people, you hear this from sales people, you hear this from customer service people, you hear this from operations people. And I said to myself that if your doctor told you that his medical theory only works in theory, would you like to visit that type of doctor? If the engineer who built the aircraft tells you that, Newton's law of physics only works in theory, would you like to fly in that aircraft? If the people who build your cars tell you that all the thermodynamics that goes into the manufacture of cars, it's only theory, it only works in theory, would you like to be sitting in those cars? So I think that as HR professionals and as management professionals, we should recognize that theory, when we say we are teaching theory, it is based out of experience, out of experiments, out of observation and scientific inquiry. The exact same way theories in medicine, germ theory, for example, that taught us about how bacteria works and how to deal with bacteria and viruses and so on. That all of these theories in medicine, in science, in engineering, as well as in the social sciences, like in management or in HR or in operations or in strategy, they don't only work in theory, they work in real life. The challenge is, do you understand how to translate the theory to practical? And I'm saying this because that's one of the biggest problems around linking learning to performance. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that when you gather people in a room like this and we explore learning around any subject matter, when companies invest in customer service, when they invest in customer service training or in sales training or in performance management or leadership training, then people say, they leave the class, they say, oh, well, but that's only theory. It only works in theory. No, that's where the problem is. It doesn't only work in theory. The problem is that you've not understood it enough to apply it to the real world. And that's not the fault of the theory. That's your fault. So I want us all to think about this, this concept of it only works in theory. So what are some of the theoretical um, um, explanations? What have researchers done that will help us to understand the importance of linking learning to performance, as well as how to go about it? There are many theories that can explain this very important phenomenon, but I will share with you very quickly just four of these theories this afternoon. The first on your screen is called the resource-based view. The resource-based view teaches us that competitive advantage in our organizations comes from attracting, developing, and deploying unique resources in the organization, foremost of which is human capital. That if we are able to attract, develop, and deploy the right human capital, then we will achieve sustainable competitive advantage in our organizations for our organizations in our industries. And learning, therefore, is that tool that we use to do what? To develop that human capital. So if we invest properly in learning, guess what? We would achieve competitive, sustainable advantage. This is not theory. This is not just a theory. This is scientific. There's scientific evidence that backs this up. So we should take it very seriously. Human capital theory also proposes that knowledge, skills, and abilities, what we call the KSAs, that these KSAs that we describe as competencies, the demonstrable knowledge, skills, and abilities, are forms of capital. Interesting, listen to that language, that they are forms of the capital that increase productivity and performance. So the competencies of people, not just the people, Because I remember writing about this many years ago, and you can Google it in the Guardian newspaper, that is it that do we have human beings or do we have human capital? Because there's a fundamental difference. Human being shows up. Human being is a physical manifestation, but the knowledge, skills, and abilities is what is the human capital. And that knowledge, skills, and abilities, if you think about it, is engendered through learning. If you don't learn, how will you build knowledge, skills, and abilities? Or do you think that it is only the learning that took place when you were in secondary school and in the tertiary institution that matters? Meaning that once you come to the office, you are fully baked. There's nothing else for you to learn. That's not realistic. The journey of learning is a lifelong journey. And in fact, the things that brought you from secondary school and university and polytechnic into the workplace can certainly not sustain you there. So I used to tell people then, and I say it all the time, that working is actually you're on a bursary, you're on a scholarship. Because the most important thing that you come to do when you come to work is to learn. And now we are paying to learn. And it's to
Wow.
take learning and to put it into practice to create results for the organization that pays you. Yeah. The third theory that is very, very valuable is the theory called the balance scorecard. And I think I mentioned it earlier. The balance scorecard is a theory that links strategy and performance to learning and growth and three other perspectives through what we call key performance indicators and initiatives. The balance scorecard says that for any organization to succeed, it must have its strategy and performance focused on four things: on the financial perspective, the customer perspective, the process perspective, as well as the people and learning and growth perspective. So any organization that is going to succeed cannot only succeed because they make money, because they have customers that are happy, because they have world-class processes and systems. No, the balance scorecard says that they must also have the right quality of people. They must also have a culture of learning, because that is what drives organizational growth. Again, this is not just in theory. These are theories that are based on solid research, experiments, observations, the same process of scientific inquiry that they used to make airplanes. And these theories need to be put into practice. Finally, but not extensively, there is experiential learning theory, which really then talks about how should we do learning? What is the best way to do learning? And the theory proposes that hands-on learning through experience, through observation, reflection, and experimentation is the most potent way to ensure that you can get the best results out of learning. So we reflect on this. How can we make learning more effective? One of the ways is by ensuring that we use experiential learning, that is, bringing in the experiences of the participants, challenging participants to pay attention to the world around them, to reflect on what they have perceived around them, and to, do small experiments and activities that will help them to really incubate that learning, yeah, and transfer it into the workplace. Still talking about some of the theoretical foundations, I want to share with you how it is that learning actually creates performance. So you say you've read it, you've gone for a course, you've taken an e-learning course, you've attended this webinar, for example, you've read a book. These are all different forms of learning interventions. You have a mentor, you have a coach. These are all learning interventions. How does learning link to performance? What is, as we put it in science, what are the mediating mechanisms through which learning creates performance? Is it magic? Certainly not. So here they are, that when people learn, it increases their ownership and their capacity for intrapreneurship. It increases when you see when you are an expert in something. They say wise man once said that you cannot put a light and hide it under the bushel, under the bed, under the bed. You can't, under the mattress. No. That when you have light in you, when you are excited, when you have learned, what's going to happen is that it's going to shine out through the world. Your sense of ownership, your sense of entrepreneurship is going to increase, it's going to explode. And when that happens, your performance is going to go through the roof. What am I saying? The people who are not performing exceptionally in their organizations is because they haven't learned. You see, if you really, let me give you an example. Simple example. If you are very good with using Canva, or you have learned how to use Canva really well, Canva being the graphic design app, yeah, or you have learned how to use Microsoft Excel very well, aren't you going to be excellent at using it? You will be. It's just common sense. Learning drives mastery and motivation, and it's similar to that entrepreneurship and ownership. So now you are a master of the game. If you are good at software design, you have learned how to do software, you're a front-end developer, you're a back-end developer, you're a good coder. If you have learned those things, here's what's going to happen. You will become a master of it. And that's very motivating. Self-determination theory from Dechi and Ryan teaches us that competence is one of the most important things that motivates people. So when people are experts in something, motivated to do it and to do it even better. And that's absolutely important. So that sense of mastery is absolutely important, and it only comes from learning. Mastery does not come from your mother's womb. Nobody was born, with mastery of these concepts. Mastery, my dear friends, comes from learning. Now, in addition to that, creative problem solving. You see, when people have learned, they are able to solve problems in more creative ways because they have the answers. They understand the issues. So when people have learned, for example, as a consultant in our own business, if you come into a consulting firm and you go into the files of the past projects that have taken place in your organization, that's learning. Learning is not always in the classroom. Just by observing, remember experiential learning, paying attention to your environment, reflecting, asking questions. What happened with this client 3 years ago? What happened with that project 2 years ago? Let me go and find out. That is learning. And when you come out, when you learn in that way, when people even know how to use Chat GPT and AI, when they have a puzzling problem, a challenge, a proposal they need to come up with, a challenge from a client or a prospect that they need to deal with, and they go to Chat GPT and they ask Chat GPT the right question, and ChatGPT gives them an answer, and they challenge ChatGPT and say, no, but that your answer, I need to understand it better. Does it apply in this way? Does it apply in that way? Guess what? Those people have learned. And now they can apply what they have learned to solve real life problems. It is not theory. It is for real. Learning also affects the quality of decision making. So the kind of recommendations that you give to your boss, the kind of recommendations you give to your colleagues, the type of decisions you take as a manager or as a professional or as a director, depending on the kind of scope that you have in your organization. Your decision making does not come from emptiness. It comes from what you know. If you know plenty, the quality of your decision making improves. If you know little, then it is no surprise. If your decision making is poor, your performance will be poor. Ladies and gentlemen, the link between learning and performance, it's not magic. Very importantly, people who have learned are also very adaptable. They're very flexible. They can respond properly to change because they are confident. They're confident about the past. They're confident about the future. They're confident about their capacity to adapt. People who haven't learned, people who are not solid in a particular area are always the first to say, no, let's keep doing it the way we have always done it. There's no need to change. They are very resistant to change. The reason is because they have not opened their eyes. They are blind guides. They don't know any better. But when you learn and you understand the way the world works and you understand the way other people think, you will be adaptable, you'll be flexible, you'll be open to change. You would even be open to diversity, to different people's perspectives. All of this because of learning. People who are adaptable, who are open to change, who are agile in this way, these are the people that perform. Where does their performance come from? It comes from their learning. Finally, but not exhaustively, when people learn, it enhances their capacity to share knowledge. Knowledge sharing is a very important thing. And of course, their capacity to collaborate with each other. So, because you see, when organizations and the people who work in organizations don't share knowledge and they don't collaborate, there's no way they're going to perform. So, where does this knowledge sharing and collaboration come from that drives performance? It comes from learning. It's what's in between here, what you know, what you've experienced, the skills you have, the things you can do. So that when they put you on a project, they say, guys, we're all working on this project together to solve this problem for a client or to develop this solution for our prospects. Guess what? You are able to share what you have. And if you have nothing, you have nothing to share. And you are confident about collaborating and working with other people because you have something valuable to bring to the table. Ladies and gentlemen of the Champions of HR program, I've tried to share with you in the last couple of slides across the last 15 minutes why it is critical to link learning to performance strategy. I've shared with you some of the theoretical foundations. I've challenged you if you were ever in the mindset of it only works in theory or it works only in theory to get that crazy nonsense out of your heads. There is a link between theory, between learning and performance. And I have demonstrated that link to you, showing you some of these mediating mechanisms through which learning actually creates performance. So at this point, I'm going to pause and hear from you. What do you guys think? I imagine that you are itching with questions and thoughts around some of the things that we've talked about. I would love to hear from you, your questions, your thoughts, your contributions. Yes. Who would like to get a virtual chocolate? We have our co-hosts. Yes, Chinwe. Hello, is Chinwe trying to make a contribution? Unfortunately, we can't hear you. All right. Sorry. Hello. All right. We are struggling to hear from Chinwe. Anybody else would like to make a contribution?
Good evening, sir, and everyone.
Good evening, Angela, one of our
So,
regulars. Welcome again.
thank you, sir. Nice to be here again. For me, it's just one line item to summarize this, that you can't give what you don't have. And for you to be able to give, you need to have. So linking learning to performance is just saying the obvious. I don't, initially I used to think that theories are just theories in our clan. You can't really put them to practice, but it's not true. So from what you have explained today, I can see that it's really not true that theories are not theory for theory's sake. They are there to guide us, to help us to open up our mind to understand and be able to apply them to real world situation. That's
Exactly.
just my take from today's.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that. My favorite Latin expression, nemo dat quod non habet. You cannot give what you don't have. So organizations want people to perform, but the people who have nothing. So what are they going to perform? Excellent. Um, Cornelius Goji, please go ahead, sir. Floriat.
Yeah, good evening, please, Floret, and good evening, all.
Good evening,
Thank
sir.
you very much, Mr. Agbushe, for that wonderful insight. Mine is just to a rider to say, as you said, you can't give what you don't have. And for you to have, you
Mm,
must be a studious and learning person.
mm,
And both theories are founded on the basis of observations and assessment of those observations. And there are
mm,
things that happen around us
mm,
that people have taken time to observe, take
mm,
down notes, and
mm,
uh, try to apply to what happens around us. And in the
mm,
process of application, you
mm,
you you observe the impact and the
mm,
consequences of those applications, and then
mm,
from there you also take notes and
mm,
have some notes that help as learning points that
mm,
probably also help to either validate your observations or
mm.
invalidate those observations for
Exactly.
future learnings and future studies. Thank you
Mm.
very much. That's just what I want to add, sir.
Very much. Thank you very much, sir. And spoken like a true scientist. At the end of the day, you cannot say that what we have observed, what the experiments we've done, and all of those things are just useless. And the reason I brought that up is that we are talking about learning, and we want to all understand, just like what Angela also said, that there is a relationship. It almost sounds like common sense before uncle. But here's where the problem is. In the real world, we invest so much in training and development and capacity building, and then people come to the office and they leave it behind. In fact, right there in the training, what are people saying all the time? They are saying, this thing will not work. Oh, in my office, my guy is one kind. I have one kind manager like this. It cannot work. Oh, the way our management is, the way our office is, this type of thing will not work. So you've already determined that the training is a waste. Don't be a waste. So, what are some of these realities that we are talking about? And that's where I would like us to move on to. Some of these realities of learning and development. Unfortunately, very low amounts of resources are disposed towards learning. Learning and development is typically not an important priority for organizations and for the leaders of organizations. Yeah, which is really unfortunate. Um, and oftentimes, learning is under threat during recessions. I see that we have a few questions on the chat, and I'm going to come to those questions right after this. So please indulge me. Yeah, learning is often under threat during a recession. Once the company's fortunes, once the economy is under slight recession, the first thing they do is let's cut the training budget. Let's cut the training budget. These are some of the realities. Learning is often a tick the box activity. Oh, well, our regulators say that we need to do training for all our staff. Tick, tick, tick. Our board said we need to do training for our staff. Tick, tick, tick. Or sometimes it's a perk, we need to send people abroad, to the abroad for the abroad training. You know what I mean? So that when they come back from the training, they will have big, big titles at the back of their names, and they will have acquired more certificates that they put on their CVs that make them feel more important. And they will have collected some travel allowance, and enjoyed a 2 week vacation in Dubai, in Johannesburg, in New York, or in London. So for some people, it's just a perk. I have gone to IMD, CSD, BBD, HBS. They call the names of all the prestigious institutions they have gone to. But does this mean that performance has improved? Sometimes it does, most times it doesn't. It is the culture of the acquisition of certificates rather than the sabificates. The people there sabi the work, and please pardon my Nigerian pidgin. Do they know the work? Can they do the work? Or is it just that they have the plenty certificates? And sometimes as HR people, we are the people who cause this problem. Because when we are asking people, when we are recruiting people, what are we doing? We're asking them for certificates upon certificates upon certificates, as if to say any of these certificates predict anything. When you think about, go and study all the studies in organizational behavior, in human resources, in strategic HR, there is nobody who has ever done a study that showed that a certificate predicted better performance. It doesn't happen. The only thing certificates predict is that you can get a job. That's all. So if you have a certificate as a chartered accountant, you are more likely to get a job as a chartered accountant. If you have a certificate as a doctor, as a lawyer, an engineer, you'll get a job. I mean, there are some professions that without a certificate, all the ones I mentioned, they won't give you a job in the first place, right? And that's for important security reasons. Yeah, because they want to be sure. But the fact that you have the certificate, does that predict excellent performance? Certainly not. There is also very low levels of training transfer, of learning transfer, what I just described earlier. So there's plenty of activity around training, but how much of it actually transfers? How much of that skill, that theory that they say it is only theory, how much of it actually transfers into the workplace? So people learn about Excel, how much they transfer it. People learn about leadership, how much they transfer it. People learn about HR, how much do they transfer it? And what is the reason why the transfer is not happening? Pertinent questions for us to reflect on. And finally, the single bullet fallacy. Oh, this is a big problem. Part of the realities that people will just sit down and say, you know what? Here's what we know. Once we send our staff for a training, all our problems will disappear. Foul. It doesn't happen. Training is not a single bullet that solves all problems. So there is much more. As a HR person and as an L&D person, you must understand the other dimensions. I mean, we've had a session here on the Champions of HR program where we explore the concept of performance consulting, how to find the cause of performance problems, diagnose these root causes, and come up with solutions to address these root causes. And one of the things we learned at that time was that training is not the only solution. It's not a single bullet that solves all problems of performance. So as a training and development practitioner, as a human resources management practitioner, as a leader in an organization, you must understand that training alone is not a single bullet. There are other things that drive human performance. So what are those other things? And how can you bring those other things into play so that your training investments will be more effective? All right. So I'd like us to spend some time reflecting on these. But before we do that, I would like to try to respond to some of the questions and comments from some of the participants. Yeah. So someone asked, can we get a soft copy? Yes, we always get a soft copy as well as we get a recording of the session. So look out for that. Chinedu says, how does one effectively translate strategic and performance measures into learning needs? And how do we also ascertain in the light of strategy that learning mastery has been attained? Excellent questions. And we're going to talk about those questions very deep. You're asking questions about, how do we measure the effectiveness of learning? How do we know that learning has created an impact? Learning Impact, the name of our company. Yeah. And how do we ensure that we have measures that actually link learning to performance? Excellent questions. And that's really the conversation of this session together. So far, I learned you need to keep learning and applying what you have learned. Excellent insight, Olubumi. That's exactly what the core conversation has been. We need to keep learning and applying what we have learned. It is only in the application that the training and the learning investment is valuable. If you don't apply it, then in the words of Chi Girl, the comedian, all of those investments have been a what? A waste. And we don't want you to be a waste. So here's what I would like us to do now. I'd like us to do a bit of a conversation in some breakout rooms, and I'm going to put everybody into some breakout rooms, just about 4 or 5 breakout rooms, yeah. And I want us to have a discussion about what we have learned so far, yeah. What have we learned in the last 1 hour together? What insights have we gleaned actually in about 50 minutes that we've been together? And on the screen is what I'd like us to discuss. So sitting within your groups, have a conversation, talk to each other. What are the other challenges that are part of the L&D reality in your organization? I've shared with you about 5 or 6 of the challenges that I have perceived as a practitioner and through our experience and research over the years. What others challenge you? Okay. Second question on the screen. What can HR professionals do to overcome these challenges? And third question, what role do leaders and employees play in overcoming these challenges? Ladies and gentlemen, these are 3 questions. I'd like us to spend 10 minutes in our groups, talk with each other, have a conversation, learn from each other. So we are practicing a bit of that experiential learning. Let's exchange some ideas with each other. Let's interact with each other around these 3 questions. I hope the instruction is clear. Everyone? Yes? Anybody to confirm that it is clear? I'm about to open the meeting room.
Yes, it's clear, Bishop.
Excellent.
Please,
Thank you.
please.
Yes,
Excellent.
it's clear, sir. It's
All
clear,
right.
sir.
All right. Okay. So let's jump into our rooms, and we will come back in about 10 minutes. You can join your rooms now. Please join your rooms. Please join your rooms. Excellent question from Azuka, and we'll get to that question when we come back. Please join your rooms. I see there are some of our participants who haven't joined their rooms yet. Ama, Tolulope, Fada, Claire, Christian, Chinwe. Victor, please join your rooms if you can. Please join your rooms. Tolulope, Fada, Claire, Chinwe, Ama. If you can hear me, please join your rooms. We have 2 minutes more.
Hello.
Hello. Who is there?
Okay. Oh, the network threw me out. I'm trying to reconnect to my
Alright.
group.
All right. And sorry, I think you're just like a few seconds away from, us coming back in. So
Oh,
I guess you might as well just wait it out. The rooms are just about to be closed now.
okay.
Yes, network. And they have been
Yeah.
right. All right. We should be coming back into from the other room to the main room.
Now it has become clear that Soyang is very important. And someone wants to eliminate him. Because if hampered his or her interest.
Role do leaders and employees play in turning this around? I think we are back to the class. So,
Yes, you are.
Christian, thanks.
We are back.
You are back to the class.
Is it 10 minutes already? It was looking so
Yes,
fast, like
it is.
we didn't get actually 10 minutes.
Well, time have
We're
flight.
still in
Time,
number 2 question.
no
10
problem.
minutes.
We're actually
Time
going
flies.
to number 3 question. You want to give us a few minutes
No,
back in
no, we don't have a
two?
few minutes. Don't worry, it's okay. We're just running an experiment. And we're getting the
Okay.
result we want. That it is indeed an interesting subject area, and there's plenty to talk about and plenty to learn. Yeah. And so we encourage you to continue the conversations. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. All right, so let's continue from where we stopped. We still have about 25 minutes to go and some very important areas to cover. We have some really interesting questions coming up from on the chat, and I'd like to see if I can just say a few things about one of the questions. One of the participants is asking, Azuka, how would you handle a case where you have invested in learning, managed to convince your management to invest in L&D, yet you are not seeing or recording the projected objective as required? Exactly. That's a classic situation that you described, Azuka. And the reason is because of what I said just before we left. Because learning is not a single bullet. we've got to ask ourselves, what are the other factors that drive performance in our organization? What are the other levers that we have to pull to be able to ensure that we can get the results that we want? And of course, some of that has to do with the quality of the people. You see, there's something else. You have to be careful, because if you are throwing learning, it's like throwing pearls to dogs. If the people of, pardon the very raw analogy, but if the people you are asking to go and learn are people who are not interested in the work, they do not see the work as to the, last week we were doing a retreat for a client, and the CEO of the organization said, his biggest challenge is having people who don't see their work in the organization as part of the mission of their lives. They do not see it as a vocation. They haven't achieved what the Japanese refer to as ikigai, an alignment between your life, your purpose, your talent, and your work. If people are still working just to get by, if your job is just something you do just to collect salary, then no matter how much we invest in training and development for you, unfortunately, Azuka, it may end up being a waste. So they are quite it's a hydra-headed problem, as we say. It is not only your investment in training that could solve the problem. You have to ask yourselves about the other things. And we'll talk about a few of those things before we conclude today. Okay, so thanks for your question and for your thoughtful comments regarding the program. And here they are. What are some of the things that are critical? What are the key issues in ensuring that training and learning and development investments can give you the return on expectations and the return on impact that you want, the return on investments that you want? So what are some of these key issues? First of all, the first issue is, do you have the right people on the bus? Do you have the wrong people off the bus? Do you have A players in your organization? Who is an A player? An A player is an employee whose talents, whose interests, whose capabilities, whose interests are well aligned with that of the organization. They can do their job with minimal supervision. I believe it was 2 months ago or last month that we explored the subject of how to find and keep A players in our organizations. Very important. Because if not, you are wasting your learning investments. It's a complete waste. So the first problem that organizations, have to do to address James Collins and his co-researchers did an amazing work called Good to Great. And in that research, number one outcome of the research, it is not theory. The outcome of that, it doesn't only work in theory. The number one outcome of that research was get the wrong people off the bus, the right people on the bus, so that all of you can determine where to drive the bus to. If you don't have A players in your organization, your training investments are a waste. Second is the organizational culture. What type of culture is in the organization? For example, if you have an organization whose culture is cavalier, the leaders of the organization are laid back, they are anything goes type of people. They are, what they call it, what's the word? Cowboys. They are people who their success didn't come out of learning, but their success came out of being notorious, came out of being dubious, came out of being criminal. Well, that sort of describes about 70% of Nigerian organizations, isn't it? Yes. Depends on who you are asking. Yeah. A good friend of mine once said that Nigeria is like a dirty toilet. And in a dirty toilet, it is only maggots that do well. So when you see people doing well, in a dirty toilet, check, they may just be maggots. So if the culture of your organization is such that the organization has thrived based on illicit business, on corruption, and all sorts of things, then such an organization will not naturally prioritize learning. Because to them, what is learning? We didn't make it because we learned. We made it because we did deals, because we did corruption, because we were sharp. If we learned anything, we learned the wrong things. And if that's the culture of the organization, then it's going to be hard to get learning to work in that organization. Certainly not positive learning. They may be learning criminal things, but certainly not positive things. The third key issue is competencies. And we spoke about that when we explored the human capital theory at the beginning. What are those demonstrable knowledge, skills, and attitudes and abilities that are required to succeed? We must build our learning infrastructure around competencies. Competencies are the science of HR. They determine when you say someone's job is an accountant, you say, what are the competencies for that job? Someone's job is sales professional. What are the competencies? Someone is, what they call it, a trainer. What are the competencies? It is through competencies that we will employ the A players, that we will decide the training that people need, so that training is not whimsical. Training is very tied to the predictors of success, because competencies predict success. Then all the issues about training transfer and learning transfer. What can we do? What must we do before a training? Because you see, sometimes people talk about ROI. And I tell people that if you don't deal with learning transfer, ROI will never happen. What do I mean by this? If you don't ensure that before the training, during the training, and after the training, there is some structure and some discipline around key things. And I'll give you a simple example. Before someone goes to a training, does their line manager talk to them and read them the riot act and say to them, Nkiruka, you are going for this training. These are the areas of your deficiency. Number 1, number 2, number 3. This is the learning objective of the training. When you go there, don't go and eat jollof rice and drink Coke. The purpose of that training is that when you come back, I expect you to be able to do number 1, number 2, number 3. How many times do line managers sit and have these types of structured conversations? Here's my theory. And it is not theory, it works. When you have these conversations, the employee is a bit more engaged. These are the things, Azuka, that help to ensure that training is not a waste. If before the training, during the training, and after the training, there are not certain specific things going on, then that training is not going to create the ROI. And of course, to the question that was asked earlier, I can't remember who asked the question about what metrics and so on you want to put in place, isn't it? Yes. So what are those metrics? Those metrics, how do you translate it into learning needs? So you have to ask yourself, critical question for ROI is, what is the expectation? Think about a training ROI model as simply, where are we today in terms of the behaviors and the results that these employees, where is Amma, where is Tolu, where is Victor, where is Claire, where are they in terms of their behaviors and their performance, whether it is in public speaking, whether it is in business writing, whether it is in problem solving, whether it is in financial accounting, where are they? Then where do we want them to be? You define it. Then this way, the trainer, the facilitator, the content provider, everybody is clear about so it's about being precise. You see, a lot of times, look, let me tell you the truth. I've seen all sorts of things on this job. We've dealt with organizations before where we interact with a head of HR. We say, you want training in personal effectiveness? He says, yes. He's a chief HR officer, very experienced, 20 years. You say, sir, can you be specific about what you want? He said, look, you are the experts. You know what personal effectiveness is. You know what that tells me? That tells me that this guy is just ticking a box. He's just ticking a box. They said we should do personal effectiveness training. Oh yeah, do it. What you want is very specific expectations. These are the results we want from today. Let me give you an example, very specific, right? Pay attention to this. Very simple, personal effectiveness. We want from next week that all our staff will be using a to-do list every day. Simple. Simple expectation. So that way, when you enter the training, the trainer knows, okay, everybody bring out your book. This is what a to-do list is, and this is how to use it. And we drill down in that area. You see, writing skills or presentation skills. We want people to be able to use PowerPoint properly. No problem. We focus on that. So that when we are now examining the employees after 3 months, you say, okay, so after 3 months, where are they? Ask their line manager. That skill that they went to acquire, that competence they went to acquire, where are they 3 months later? Where are they 6 months later? That's your ROI model. And how has that skill improved their results? So that person who is using PowerPoint better now, is he getting more sales? That person who is using a to-do list now, are they meeting more deadlines? These are the quantifiable things. But HR people, L&D people, organizational leaders, these are the things that are critical. If not, your training investments will never be linked to strategy and performance. And not exhaustively on the screen, the use of learning technology. Because what does technology do? Technology scales learning. It gives you options. So today we have the beauty of e-learning. We have, look at all of us now, we are here from different parts of the world, different parts of Nigeria, and so on and so forth. We are learning. Thank God for the technology. And we can use this. Look at this now. This session is being recorded. Do you know that for the next 50 years, this recorded session is available for as long as the technology supports it? It's available. You can convert it. Even the Betamax video we watched in 1980, we have converted it to DVD. So everything is possible. So today this thing will be hosted on YouTube, no problem. 50 years from now, there may be no YouTube. But whatever exists in 50 years, no problem. It's there. You can achieve so much. And organizations are not paying attention to this. Let me give you a simple example. Think about onboarding and how much more effective onboarding will be because you have recorded a video, because you have done e-learning, so that you don't have to be using your mouth the same time over and over again to be saying the same thing. And you also don't have to be relying sometimes on people to do the onboarding and explain the things, because you don't want to suffer from Chinese whispers, where people are saying what they don't know or what they don't fully understand. So there's a lot that technology can do to drive the impact of learning and the relationship between learning and strategy. Yeah. Building on these issues very quickly. What can you do as a HR person? Here's my admonition to HR and training people. Focus your recruitment on competency-based selection. Forget all the certificates and all of these things. Let's focus on competencies. Forget years of experience. I know people who have 25 years banking experience. They can't tell you anything about banking. They were AGMs. Nonsense. What can people demonstrate to you? So go and become an expert in competency-based selection. Go and read the book about A players, about how to find and attract A players. The book by Bradford Smart. Yeah? Go and find those books. Go and learn how to do competency-based assessments that predict success. Number 2, learn to balance your scorecard. Understand the balance scorecard. Understand financial, customer, process, people, and understand how to build KPIs. Understand how to set performance expectations. Because just like what Angela said earlier, you can't give what you don't have. As the custodian of performance and learning in an organization, how can you link learning to performance when you don't understand performance? So HR people, if you have not read Kaplan and Norton's book, Balance Scorecard, If you have not read the book by, what's his name? The guy from Michigan Business School, the HR Champions guy. Yeah, if you have not read his book called the HR Scorecard, if you don't understand the metrics of HR success, we are going to do HR metrics. I think we did that sometime last year. If you don't really understand the metrics that drive business and organizational success across the balance scorecard, then you can never link training to strategy and performance. Number three, if you don't understand your products, do you understand your business? You are in different industries. HR people are in oil and gas. HR people are in technology. HR people are in banking and financial services. HR people are in consulting. HR people are in education. Are you an expert in that area? Again, you can't give what you don't have. There is no way you are going to organize training interventions and you are going to be, you are a HR person in a pension company and you say you want to do training, but you don't understand pensions. No, you've got to be a master of the game. This is the heart of HR. And of course, what is your capabilities with respect to experiential learning? Can you facilitate experiential learning? Or are you, because you see, HR people, you have become like a contractees. All you are doing now is we're just giving out contracts to learning impact. And it's good. Keep on giving us the contracts, so we'll collect it. But I think it will be valuable if you, as HR, is the chief HR practitioner, is the chief facilitator of learning in your organization. It's an important cultural change, but it needs to happen. These are some of the things that we believe are critical. Yeah. So we need to build that HR capability to do these things. Then very importantly, how do you gain the commitment of your leaders? How do you gain the commitment of your leaders? You need to prioritize business results and not HR initiatives. It's absolutely important. Yeah, you need to prioritize business results and not HR initiatives. So when you are speaking with your executives, you need to be talking from the perspective of what are the business results that we need to achieve, not, oh, this is what HR wants, and so on and so forth. It is absolutely critical that you prioritize business results. Now, in addition, you must measure and HR initiatives with clear metrics, right? So you must measure and report HR initiatives with clear metrics. Absolutely important. You must pay attention to things like performance consulting. What's performance consulting about? It's about you intervening in HR. It is about you intervening in the organization, yeah? And solving problems, not just sending people to go and solve the problems, but solving the problems, getting your hands dirty in the organization. Absolutely important. It's also about you understanding and using exemplars. Who are the people who have excelled in HR issues? Who are the line managers who are pushing the bar with respect to learning and so on? Identify such people and play up that success that they have achieved, because that's a powerful way of ensuring that you can gain the commitment of leaders. I'm having a bit of a technical issue, so I'd like you guys to just give me 1 second, 1 minute actually, not a second. Let me try and sort it out and I'll be back shortly, okay? All right. Sorry for that breaking transmission. So I was saying you've got to identify and use exemplars. Find people who are doing, who are interested in learning, and show the relationship between the investments they have made in learning and the successes that they have in their jobs. And like I said, how do you create a culture of learning? HR must become the chief facilitator in the organization. Absolutely important. Yeah. Um, you know, get feedback. Go into the organization and ask. Speak to the leaders. What are we doing wrong? What can we do better? Do some assessments. Get some qualitative and quantitative feedback about training investments that you have made. What do line managers think? Yeah, it's absolutely important. Number 3, teach people how to learn. Teach people how to learn. Very, very important, because you assume that people know how to learn. What is learning? Learning is not just acquiring knowledge. Learning is certainly not acquiring a certificate. It is acquiring knowledge, practicing that knowledge, and teaching it and transferring it to the real world. If you acquire knowledge alone, or you acquire a certificate alone, and you do not practice, teach, and transfer it, you haven't learned. Trust me, most people don't know how to learn. Then you need to promote a culture of hunger in your organizations, what we call the pedagogy of the determined, the learning that comes out of hunger. People must hunger. They must understand that if they don't look for learning, they can't succeed. And that is an important culture that you want to bring out in your organization. I already spoke about using learning technology, and we already discussed about how to incorporate learning into KPIs. So for example, I remember years ago when we were in the pension industry, we had a challenge where our employees did not understand the technical issues of the pension industry. How did we address it? We put it on the KPI. Employees will take a quarterly test. If they fail the test, they repeat the test. The test carries 20% of their overall performance. What are you signaling when you do that in an organization? You are signaling to the employees through their KPI that you can't get promoted on this job unless you understand our products, unless you can speak the technical language of pensions. Because if you can't speak the technical language of pensions, you can't satisfy our customers. There is a relationship through the KPI between learning and performance. And these are some of the KPIs we must be thinking about. How can we put in KPIs that really challenge people to build capacity? Remember, the KPI wasn't if you don't have a master's degree, you can't be promoted. And with due respect, this is how our organizations used to be before. You say, oh, to become a senior manager, you need to have masters. To become a deputy director, we are not an academic institution. Even in academia, the world is changing. Say, oh, to become a deputy director, you need to have PhD. No. This is the real world. What we are looking for are real and tangible skills. What do you have in your hand? What can you deliver? So, dear friends, that is the story of what it takes to link learning to strategy and performance. Of course, I wish we had so much more time to explore in so much more depth some of these issues. But remember, it's just the Champions of HR mentoring session for the month of March. It's just 90 minutes that we have together. But if you are new to this platform and new to this forum, you can, there's a WhatsApp group that you can join. I'm hoping my colleagues would share the link to the WhatsApp that you can join immediately so that you can continue to hear from us and interact with us. We also have a YouTube channel that has all of the videos from the previous sessions. So you can, check out that YouTube channel. It's called the Online Efiko. And the Online Efiko has all the previous sessions from our HR programs in a particular playlist. Just go there and check it out. Yeah, Champions of HR. But that's essentially today's story. We started off with theoretical and empirical foundations, and we learned powerfully that it doesn't only work in theory, it works in real life. We explored some of the realities of L&D and the challenges of L&D, the key issues in strategic learning and development. We talked about how to build your capabilities as a HR person to be able to respond and create that linkage between learning and performance. We explored things that you can do to gain the commitment of your leaders, as well as important things to do to create a culture of organizational learning. Yeah. With all of these, right, we have hopefully moved the needle in your lives around the subject of strategic human resources, which is our overarching goal, and more specifically about how to improve learning in your organizations. All right, so the floor is open to a couple of more questions. We wouldn't like to keep you guys beyond the advertised time. We are already at 5:30 West African time. So perhaps, one or two interventions, comments or questions very quick before we leave, and we can call it a wrap for today. Anyone?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay, so we have one person who is speaking. Please tell us who you are.
My name is Saeed, and this is not a question, just like a comment.
Yeah.
Key takeaway for me is for me is not all about what you let me put it this way, that what can you do, not what you have, just like you mentioned in terms of certificate, but the technicality of what you can do, give it to, if this is being given to you, is can you deliver? Is it a thing that you can put together and then make it to come to life in real world? So I think is a major key takeaway for me. And thank you very much.
You're very welcome, sir. So what can we do? Very important. Yeah. Critical. It's really about capability. And that's what learning is really about. It's about capacity. Learning that does not transfer, that does not change the world is a waste. Yeah. Someone has their hand up. In Kiruka, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Efiko. Honestly, I thank you for doing this, even free, because
Yeah.
it's a lot. And there was a time I gave a talk in the CIPM forum on how we make ourselves, strategic in organizations. How do we even make our employers respect us? So we have to have all this knowledge, because if you don't have it, they don't bring you in. They just think you're just sitting there doing personnel management or doing whatever they call HR. They don't even understand. So from beginning, you have to let them know that if you're bringing in people, I have to be there. If you're doing your vision and mission, I have to be part of it. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be blamed for not motivating or for not doing, but I have to know the kind of people, because some people will just flood your company with their brothers and sisters and then blame you for non-performance.
Exactly.
So always assert yourselves and learn. We have to know these things as HR so that they can respect us. Thank you very much for all this. Yeah.
I like that comment about respect. One of the first things I learned in HR was that I read an article, a case study from Harvard Business Review. It says, "Why nobody respects these HR departments." That was the title of it. Very interesting. Why does HR not get respect? You can look for it on Harvard Business Review. Classic case study about that. Thanks for sharing that, in Kiruka. Yeah. And because of what you said, I just remembered on this slide. Please, you can try to scan this QR code. If you're using your phone, there's an article there about sustaining the impact of learning, and inside the article, there's also a case study, about a Nigerian case study about what you can do to sustain the impact of learning. in your organization. So you will get the PDF of this document, so you can, do this, or you can just scan the QR code right now, and you can save the article and the link to the case study to which I referred. Yeah. So I'd like to thank everyone for your time and for your participation this evening, and for all of your, what do you call it? And for all of your feedback. Someone's asked a very nice question. Shehu Idris Musa. Shehu Idris says, is certification with balance scorecard worth doing? Let me tell you a funny story. So I had been practicing as a balance scorecard professional. I first learned about the balance scorecard in about 2007. And then I started to read all the books and everything. And at some point, there was a consultancy project that we needed to do. So I was involved with implementing the balance scorecard for Stanbic IBTC in 2009, 2010, and I got a lot of experience there. And when I left and started my own firm, we started doing a lot of work around balance scorecard. So there was a project that was balance scorecard related. And the chief strategy officer of the organization said that all the top management of the organization had been to balance scorecard certification training, and that he thought that, just for my own personal development, they had given me the contract to, but it doesn't look good that me, that I'm the facilitator, I don't have the balance scorecard certificate training and so on. So after we finished that program, I went to get the balance scorecard certification training in the United States. Guess what I found? When I got there, and I'm not saying this out of being pompous, but the lecturer didn't even know half of the real things that we had experienced with the balance scorecard. When we facilitated the retreat with the balance scorecard for the managers who had all been to the training, the managers too didn't seem like they really understood. It sounded like they really had a good time in Johannesburg, on a holiday for 1 week, learning about the balance scorecard. They didn't seem to me like they had really understood it. So, back to your question, is very simple. Is the certification worth it? Yes, it is. But what is much more than worth it is your ability to take that certification and use it to really transform your career and the organizations that you support. There are people who have the certificates, and it is a waste. And on that note, I would like to thank you all once again and wish you the very best for the rest of tonight and this evening and the rest of the weekend and the working week ahead. On behalf of myself and my colleagues at Learning Impact, thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation. I shared the link.
Thank you, sir.
Please feel free to connect with us on WhatsApp, and I'm going to try and share it just again, just in case you missed it. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
A lot of stuff happening.
Definitely will get in touch. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you, Miriam. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you and your family.
Thank you.